For 500 years, Rome was the undisputed master of the Mediterranean world. Empires rose and fell around its edges, but none truly threatened the bedrock of its power. Then, in the mid-3rd century AD, from the golden sands of the Syrian desert, emerged a queen. A woman whose ambition was so immense, she did what no general, no king, and no barbarian horde had managed for half a millennium. She seized the most vital provinces of the Roman Empire and crowned herself Empress of the East. Her name was Zenobia, Queen of Palmyra, a city-state that was once merely a prosperous trading post on the edge of the Arabian desert. She claimed descent from Cleopatra and the lineage of the Ptolemies. Whether true or not, her actions proved her spiritual successor. In the span of just 5 years, while Rome was consumed by chaos and civil war, a period historians call the crisis of the 3rd century, Zenobia marshaled her armies, launched a massive invasion, and conquered Egypt, the breadbasket of the Roman world, along with much of Asia Minor and Syria. She created the mighty Palmyrene Empire. She ruled from the sun-drenched capital of Palmyra, a city of towering colonnades and Hellenistic grandeur, issuing coinage bearing her own image, refusing to pay homage, and demanding recognition as an equal to the Roman emperor. This is the story of how a widow, driven by political genius and relentless ambition, took advantage of a collapsing empire. It is the story of a dramatic, high-stakes collision between the fierce individualism of the East and the suffocating rigidity of Roman power. Her ultimate confrontation with the Emperor Aurelian would determine the fate of not one, but 2 civilizations. Zenobia's story begins not in a palace, but in a remarkably strategic and cosmopolitan city, Palmyra, known historically as Tadmor. Located in modern-day Syria, Palmyra was an oasis city, positioned precisely between the Roman world to the west and the Persian, Parthian, and later Sasanian empires to the east. For centuries, Palmyra thrived as a crucial intermediary. Its wealth was derived by taxing the vast caravans that carried luxury goods, silk, spices, and perfumes between the 2 great powers. Palmyra was officially a Roman client state, but its distance from Rome granted it significant autonomy. Culturally, Palmyra was a remarkable fusion. The language was Aramaic, the names were Semitic, but the architecture was profoundly Hellenistic and Roman. Its citizens were fiercely independent, pragmatic, and immensely wealthy, building spectacular temples to local gods like Baal alongside Roman arches and forums. The city was governed by wealthy merchant families, who often served Rome as military commanders. Zenobia belonged to one such family. Though the extent of her claimed descent from Cleopatra is debated by modern historians, her deep ties to the city's powerful elite are not. Palmyra's military strength was its famed cataphracts, heavily armored cavalry, superior to Rome's legions in the vast open desert theaters of war. This combination of economic power, cultural fluidity, and military specialization made Palmyra a state ready to exploit instability. Zenobia's opportunity arose from Rome's complete collapse during the crisis of the 3rd century, 235 AD to 284 AD. This was a period defined by instability, plague, economic ruin, and nearly constant warfare. In just 50 years, Rome saw at least 26 different emperors, each struggling to hold power for more than a few months before being murdered by their own troops. The empire fractured into 3 pieces. In the west, the Gallic Empire broke away, encompassing Gaul, Britannia, and Hispania. In the east, the collapse was triggered by a much more formidable enemy, the aggressive Sasanian Persian Empire led by Shapur I. In 260 AD, the unthinkable happened. The Roman Emperor Valerian marched against Shapur I and was decisively defeated and captured, the only Roman emperor ever taken prisoner. Valerian died in captivity, a profound humiliation that shattered the myth of Roman invincibility. Into this void stepped Odaenathus, the husband of Zenobia. Odaenathus was the ruler, or senatus consul, of Palmyra. While Rome was paralyzed, Odaenathus took the initiative, using his disciplined Palmyrene forces to push back Shapur I, even capturing the Sasanian capital of Ctesiphon. Odaenathus was officially rewarded by the new emperor Gallienus with the title Corrector Totus Orientis, governor of the entire East. He was Rome's only bulwark against the Persians, and he controlled virtually every Roman military resource in the region. Zenobia was his silent, brilliant partner in this rise to power.
With Egypt secured, Zenobia's ambition exploded into open defiance. Initially, she had maintained the pretense of ruling in the name of Rome, with her son Vaballathus bearing the Roman title Dux Romanorum, leader of the Romans. But by 271 AD, she discarded all pretense. Zenobia had coins struck in Alexandria and Antioch that bore her own image and the image of Vaballathus. Critically, Vaballathus's titles were changed to reflect full sovereignty: Augustus, emperor, and Regina, queen. Zenobia ruled a consolidated empire that encompassed Egypt, Syria, Arabia, Palestine, and substantial parts of Asia Minor, including the strategically vital city of Ankara, or Ancyria. Her empire was a blend of Eastern independence and Roman administration. She even attracted numerous Roman administrators and senators who defected to her cause, drawn by her stability and success. The new Roman emperor Lucius Domitius Aurelianus, or Aurelian, initially ignored Zenobia as he was preoccupied with consolidating his own control over the chaotic West and defeating barbarian invasions. Zenobia used this time to fortify her position and establish a strong, centralized administration in Palmyra. She cultivated an image of intellectual brilliance and military discipline. She hosted scholars and philosophers at her court, most notably the famed rhetorician Cassius Longinus. She projected an image of a civilized, legitimate ruler, ready to challenge Rome for global hegemony. The lines were drawn: the restored Western Empire under Aurelian and the new Palmyrene Empire under Zenobia. The Roman Emperor Aurelian was a soldier of peasant origins, nicknamed Manu et Ferrum, Iron Hand. He was a brilliant, ruthless general who between 270 and 272 AD miraculously stabilized the fractured Roman Empire. He crushed the Gothic invaders, reclaimed lost territories, and was known to his contemporaries as the Restitutor Orbis, restorer of the world. Aurelian would not tolerate a usurper controlling Rome's eastern wealth. The defiance of Zenobia was not just a military problem, it was an existential threat to Roman legitimacy and survival. In 272 AD, Aurelian launched his decisive campaign against the Palmyrene Empire. He secured the surrender of Asia Minor quickly, often through negotiation and diplomacy rather than brute force, promising clemency to those who defected from Zenobia's cause. Zenobia's armies initially performed well. The first major battle occurred at Emei, near Antioch, where the Palmyrene cataphracts launched a devastating charge against the Roman legions. However, Aurelian's military genius shone through. He used the standard Roman tactic of feigned retreat. The Roman light cavalry broke ranks and fled, drawing the heavily armored Palmyrene cataphracts into a pursuit until they were exhausted. The Romans then counterattacked, decimating the Palmyrene cavalry. Zenobia's general Zabdas retreated to Antioch. The second major confrontation took place near Emesa, modern Homs. Here, Zenobia had concentrated a massive army, utilizing both her heavily armored cavalry and thousands of lighter Syrian and Arabian archers. Aurelian, however, had studied his enemy. He countered the terrifying cataphract charge with a mixed force of Dalmatian cavalry and light missile-throwing auxiliary troops. He specifically instructed his soldiers to target the horses and the exposed flanks of the cataphracts. The Battle of Emesa was a crushing defeat for Zenobia. Her forces were routed, and she was forced to abandon her western provinces and retreat rapidly to the formidable walls of her capital city, Palmyra. Aurelian pursued and began the crucial siege of Palmyra. The city walls were massive, and the defense was fierce, led personally by Zenobia. Aurelian's army suffered heavy casualties in the harsh desert environment, and the siege dragged on. Aurelian, wary of the cost of a long siege and the constant threat of Persian intervention, sent Zenobia a direct offer of surrender. He offered her personal safety and dignity, promising to leave Palmyra's inhabitants unharmed in exchange for relinquishing control of the city and its treasury. Zenobia's response was legendary. She rejected the offer, sending Aurelian a defiant, arrogant letter reminding him that she still possessed the immense armies of the East and expected reinforcements from her Persian and Armenian allies. She dared him to continue the siege, calling him a mere mortal who could not hope to prevail against a true empress. Zenobia's defiance proved to be her downfall. The expected reinforcements never materialized. The Sasanian Persians, under a new, less aggressive ruler, proved unwilling to risk direct confrontation with the newly formidable Aurelian. Meanwhile, Aurelian employed his usual cunning. He secured the surrender of various smaller desert garrisons that supplied Palmyra and offered massive bounties for food and water delivery, effectively starving the massive city. Seeing the inevitable end, Zenobia made a desperate attempt to escape. She mounted her fastest dromedary, a camel, and with a small escort attempted to flee east, hoping to cross the Euphrates River and seek refuge with the Persian Sasanian court. She was unsuccessful. Aurelian's scouting parties, likely the highly efficient Roman light cavalry, intercepted and captured her just before she could reach the river. Zenobia, Queen of Palmyra, was captured in 272 AD. The city, demoralized by the capture of its leader, quickly surrendered. Aurelian was merciful to the city initially, sparing the inhabitants and taking the vast treasury and Zenobia's family captive. However, a year later, in 273 AD, the remaining Palmyrene garrison revolted, killing the Roman governor. Aurelian returned, and this time showed no mercy, sacking the great city, burning its temples, and executing much of the remaining population. The great jewel of the desert was reduced to ruins. Zenobia's ultimate fate is shrouded in the ambiguity of history. The most dramatic and widely accepted account comes from the Historia Augusta. Aurelian, determined to demonstrate the total submission of the East, brought Zenobia back to Rome for his triumphant parade in 274 AD. The climax of the parade featured Zenobia, not humbled, but magnificent even in defeat. She was reportedly chained with gold shackles, so heavy they required a slave to support them. She marched before the cheering Roman crowds, an exotic, proud symbol of the immense wealth and power that Aurelian had restored to Rome. Following the triumph, the historical accounts diverge. One version claims she was executed. However, the most probable and widely accepted account states that Aurelian, respecting her dignity and fearing the consequences of executing a former queen, showed clemency. She was granted a villa in Tibur, modern Tivoli outside of Rome, where she lived out the rest of her life as an esteemed Roman matron. The historical twist is this: Zenobia failed to maintain her independent empire, but her rebellion had a profound, necessary effect. Her challenge forced Rome to finally address the crisis of the 3rd century with urgency and brutality. Aurelian's victory not only ended the Palmyrene Empire, but provided the necessary stabilization that would lead to Diocletian's successful reforms, fundamentally restructuring the Roman Empire for another 150 years. Zenobia's legacy is not just the memory of her wealth or her defiance. It is the enduring lesson that sheer ambition, backed by intellect and will, can force the mightiest empires to change. The queen who conquered Egypt may have walked in chains in Rome, but her memory remains as bright and proud as the golden sands of the great desert city she once ruled.